Normally, lying to the police does not implicate jail time. I have a problem with punishing people for lying to the police or lying to the FBI because the law allows the FBI and the police to lie to you. So if they can lie to you, remember the Martha Stewart case, they lied to her in the same conversation in which she lied to them. The FBI agent who lied to her got a promotion. She went to jail for 6 months for lying to them.
Did you feel covering from OJ to all the stuff that you were covering on Fox for 15, 20 years, actually more, did you feel that there is a risk in doing some of that day to day on cable news, that you have to be more sensational, or that you maybe aren't privy to all the information that's going on in the courtroom, or you got to keep people watching and know? One of the things that I find tough when you follow court cases these days, the way everyone seems to do on cable news, we're suddenly privy to all of this information that maybe we all shouldn't be privy to all the time, or at least the public shouldn't care about every little in and out of every little thing. How do you try to blend that?
I agree with you that the public shouldn't care about every little in and out and every little thing. But in this era of cable news, we do. I don't know how the founding fathers would have fared if cable news had been around at the time.
Not well.
Fox had and has terrific researchers. They also allowed me to hire my own researcher, a lawyer, and between Fox's researchers, known affectionately as the Brain Room, and my researcher, I was able to devour what I needed to know. Occasionally you make a mistake. Sometimes the mistake leads to a lawsuit. But remember, you're explaining things for the public. You're not making an argument before the Supreme Court. So you don't need to know everything. The key is to explain it so that the public understands it, appreciates the explanation, and wants more of it.
Okay, so with that in mind, let's switch to some of the issues of the day. So you brought up the Jussie Smollett thing, which we covered a whole bunch over the last few weeks. So he gets sentenced. There's really no one other than him, I suppose, and his lawyer who's claiming that he's still innocent. I mean, it's sort of bananas, and everyone saw the diatribe at the end during the sentencing. He gets the 150 days in jail and a couple other things. But basically, he's going to serve a week in jail, and that's it. They're going to let him out. What do you make of the sentencing, then the shortening of the sentencing, and just the media part of this? And how do you think the judge had to deal with the media portion of it?
Okay, the media is not easy to deal with. In the era that I was on the bench, Dave, cameras were not permitted in courtrooms. And in the few courtrooms in which they were permitted, the judge had an absolute right to exclude them. Today, you can't exclude them. In federal court, they're not permitted, but in state courts, they're there all the time. They're tiny. They don't make any noise. After a while, you forget that they're there, but they are there, which is why we all know more detail than we need to know. I thought his sentencing was fair. Normally, lying to the police does not implicate jail time. I have a problem with punishing people for lying to the police or lying to the FBI because the law allows the FBI and the police to lie to you. So if they can lie to you, remember the Martha Stewart case, they lied to her in the same conversation in which she lied to them. The FBI agent who lied to her got a promotion. She went to jail for 6 months for lying to them. So
wait,
I have a problem.
Quick sidebar on that. I was a PA on Martha Stewart's talk show when she came back after jail time, and she still had the monitor on her foot when she was doing the show.
When she came to Fox, she asked for me and hugged and kissed me. We are from two towns next to each other, Bloomfield, New Jersey, and Nutley, New Jersey. Bloomfield, very Italian at the time.
I
Nutley,
know
very
Bloomfield
Polish. Well. Her name is no more Stewart than mine is Smith, but she promoted that very well.
Got it.
Now back to Jussie. Because the lies were regular, consistent, systematic, and because the government wasted $125,000 to $150,000 investigating the lies, I believe that the jail sentence of 150 days and the restitution to the government was appropriate. Now, his sentence was not shortened. He was let off on appeal. It's an interesting reason why he was let off on appeal, because if he started serving the 150 days immediately, he would be finished with it before the appeal would ever even be heard, because it takes a year or two for the appellate courts to hear your appeal, because the appeals get online on the basis of when they were filed. So he's still facing 150 days in jail unless the appellate court decides either that he was wrongfully convicted or that he was over punished. I don't think either is the case.
Right. In a situation like that, so when they finally get to it, do they usually just say, we're sort of past this thing and just let him go at this point?
Well, no, because the prosecutors will be pounding the table. The appellate court would have to find that the trial was unfair, that the trial judge made mistakes of such a magnitude that he was not proven guilty, or that the sentence was unfair. The sentence was not unfair, was well within the range that the statute allows. So his only hope is to find that because the first prosecutor said, I'm not going to prosecute you, they shouldn't have assigned it to a second prosecutor. That's his only hope on appeal, that once a prosecutor said, we're not prosecuting you, that was it. Most states, once a prosecutor says, we're not going to prosecute you, they don't send it to another prosecutor. They did it because Jussie became very, very unpopular in the Chicago community. Now, you shouldn't be prosecuted just because you're unpopular. You should be prosecuted if there's enough evidence to convict and if your behavior has caused harm.
Where does that, if your behavior has caused harm, where does that go when it comes to the prosecuting? Meaning that in terms of the actual crime he committed, to set up this hoax, there's not a lot of damage done. But I think you could argue that there was a tremendous amount of damage done to society, to the city of Chicago, but the whole country in terms of this culture war that we're fighting. How often do you think judges are affected by that there's a much bigger fight at play than the specifics of, oh, okay, he paid these two guys, he made up this thing, that we could kind of look past, but it's really that you could argue that then there were more riots because of this, or just the general flame of the culture war continues because of something like this?
So that cannot be taken into account at the time of sentencing. But here's something that can be, that I think will interest you and the folks listening to us now. When I told you there's a checklist, 25 aggravating and 25 mitigating factors, one of the aggravating factors is the defendant committed this crime as a cost of doing business. Now, that was put in there because of mafia guys who committed crimes as a cost of doing business. And the judge, in my opinion, quite properly did check that box. Jussie concocted this whole thing as a cost of doing business. Now, he and I ultimately had the same bosses because we both worked for Fox. I mean, he's crazy to think that he's going to get a leg up at Fox by concocting this nonsense. Maybe at another network, but not at Fox. They'd be sorry that it happened, but that's not going to help the careers. But back to your question. The only harm was to the government. The only harm traceable to his behavior was $150,000 in police overtime investigating an event that never occurred. Now, he was charged with 6 lies because they interrogated him 6 times. And each time he gave them the same nonsensical story. He was convicted of 5. We won't know why without asking the jurors. The 6th one did not result in a conviction. Each of those could have been 3 years in jail. He ended up with 150 days.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversation about law instead of the nonstop yelling you get everywhere else, check out our law playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, check out our full episode playlist. They're both right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.